deep water, it's all deer. So I think a lot of people don't realize that they just live out here. And this is where they are most of the time, at least in daylight hours. So killing them's the hard part. So that ridge gets pounded up there, but those guys aren't killing these deer. They're occasionally getting deer. I mean, they'll get a year and a half old or something to walk up there. But the mature bucks just know better. I mean, they've been that routine several times. So what we're doing is we're getting just to the other side of here, as close as we can get, within about 75 yards. And then in this particular spot, we're almost always, when we shoot one, it's on the edge of darkness because of they know there's pressure on that ridge. Any questions about any of this?
Do we even pay attention to that type of stuff? We walk past a bunch of it, and it's just kind of like, we go to a finger, we go to a thumb.
Yeah, it's just rubs. I mean, what makes you pay attention is when it's high up on the tree, and it's a bigger round tree, this bigger. But the height has way more appeal to me than diameter. I've seen some pretty small bucks rub some pretty big diameter trees and rake their antlers on them. But what I haven't seen is a small buck rub a tree up really high. That's usually mature bucks. If the rub starts at the center of it, not the top of it, the center of it gets to your waist or higher, it's usually a mature buck. It's a pretty good one. But those rubs in most places don't tell you anything except there's a buck on the property. And that's what would make you start looking into these spots. When you're seeing the rubs in these spots, well, those are made in daylight because they're in a spot where the deer are in daylight. Night, they come out of here. Daytime, they come in here. We hunt them during daytime, so we have to be close to daytime, areas. And for whatever reason, most people don't seem to understand that. They're sitting out on food sources and stuff where they feed at night. And the older the deer, the more they're going to follow the rules because they've been down that road, they've gotten shot at. They understand what happens when they come out of here. So they come out in the safety of darkness.
Any focus on scrapes, really?
If the scrape is on the exit of a bedding area.
Just the exit.
But when you bring that up, some of the best and biggest bucks I've killed have been over scrapes. And the type of scrape is what's important. It's a scrape where two bedding areas exit and stage in the same spot, and there'll be a scrape there where they're communicating to each other. That's where I've killed some of my biggest bucks. For whatever reason, they tend to come to that spot right away as soon as they leave their beds, like there's a competition between the other buck or something.
You're getting set up back there for this area.
I'm getting set up as soon as right where we stopped, started to walk in here. That's where I set up, and my setup changes all the time because of where the trails come through. But generally, the one we came in on, where I searched around a little bit till I found it, that main trail is the one I usually set up on. But I set up further back. But I don't want to be in that wood. They don't get in there in daylight.
So if you see like a fresh rub right on the trail,
coming out of here, yeah, that's important. I find it up on the ridge. It just tells me there's one down here, but it doesn't tell me what trail he's on, and that's not daylight, right?
Yeah.
But down here, they're more important because this is where they're at in daylight, where we can kill them.
Would you think that that's kind of high up because they're carrying the water when they're making that?
It could be. This water is actually pretty deep. It varies from, there's probably spots where you can stand where the water's at here, but there's also spots where you'll be up to here. So it depends on how deep the water is around that. But those could be higher than they appear. You're absolutely correct. Overall, what I'm seeing is I'm not seeing a lot of big buck sign in this whole area right now. I expected that this area in here would have some big rubs in it, that rut bedding would have big rubs in it. There'd be bigger rubs coming out to that point. So obviously a lot of those deer probably got together. There was a very large buck running this that I was watching right up till season, and I never seen him once season was here. And obviously he ain't living back here, or there's no sign of him. And that's something that people got to understand. I mean, if you're hunting an area and there's no sign, there's no big bucks. I mean, there's got to be big buck signs somewhere. So they leave rubs, they leave tracks, they leave signs. If you're not seeing it, move. Abandon that spot and keep moving.
When you say you were watching that big buck, what were you doing to watch it?
I was glassing him and shining him.
Okay.
I was watching him cross Highway E into here and out of here. I was watching him cross Highway F in and out of here. And And the funny thing is that last video I did, the neighbors across the street contacted me, basically because I said something about them. I said they don't like me very much, so I didn't go on their property. And they said, we like you, we watch your show all the time. And they have a relative that I used to work with who really don't like me. So I mentioned that. I said, well, your relative really don't like me. And he said, we don't like him either. So I said, all right, then we'll get along. You know?
Yeah.
And they sent me pictures of all the bucks, and the one that was crossing the road was a lot bigger than I thought. It was probably 170s.
Nice.
Really big buck. I thought it was like 150s, and I put a weekend or two into it and went after something else.
So you must have a whole lot of different spots that you're watching, and then you'll hammer them when the wind is right.
I hunt about 7 or 8 counties in Wisconsin a year. I scatter myself out.
You have to with stuff like this going on.
You don't have to. Actually, sometimes you're better off concentrating on an area. Sometimes I come back to like my home turf and find out there's something really big there that I never even knew about, and would have been easy, you know. But I think generally, if I keep moving, I get on better stuff.
In other words, you're shining until you see a shooter buck. You won't even hunt that area.
I wouldn't say that. It depends on what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? I'll throw sits at an area that I think usually has a big buck in it, but I prefer finding a deer knowing he's in an area and hunting him down. I think it's easier to do. If you know he's in there somewhere and you've got some intel on him, finding him ain't so hard. I mean, I look at an area like this, as this is tiny. This is easy. He's going to be in 1 of 10 spots if he's here. But other people look at this and go, it's so immense, how would you ever find a deer in here? It's all relative to how you look at it. And that's the real thing I'm really trying to install in you guys right now, is that when you're walking around out here, all we have to look at is that edge. All your sign is along that edge. Not all of it, but over 90%. And then start putting your mind into it. Okay, where aren't people going and why? And look at the best spots we're looking at. I mean, who's coming out here if they got to wade up in water to steal? I mean, how often do you run into a guy walking around the public land with waders on that ain't one of us? Not very often. Most guys are up on the ridges and stuff. So it's the places where people don't go, that's on the edge of water and trees, and the transition. So right here we're on a transition of timber into cattails, right? So this timber here, what this tells me is a tree don't grow in water. They got to have some dirt. I guess they do down the south, like Louisiana or something. They have trees that grow in water, but here they don't. They have a little hump of something, dirt sticking up, and that's what they're growing out of. So that them humps are what deer bed on. You know, that dry stuff, they can't bed in water either. So seeing these trees out here, this is as far as they can get where they can bed. Now you do get some spots where there'll be spots out in the middle of these cattails where there's a higher elevation of cattails where there really isn't any brush, and there'll be beds there and they'll live there. But for the most part, it's on the edge here. It's on this transition of that timber into the water. And most of the big bucks that live in these areas, if you walk this transition, you walk through every place he beds.
Say the same is true for farm country, like the edge part of it.
Yeah, it's a little different, but they're going to be kind of the lowest and almost the lowest and almost the highest elevations, or right on the edge.
Cornfield
And woods
or marsh
European
and
woods, or what they love to do in that terrain is get a wood to their back, wind to their back, so they can smell the woods and just look out in front of them. And here they're not really using their vision very well. They're not using scent very well either. But try walking up to them. They got the sound factor really well here.
Make that assumption where they got to go all the way deep as in the woods as they can get, and that's where all the deer are.
Right, and that's just not true. But that's the assumption most people have. And even when somebody starts to dawn on them where these things really are, it's really hard to get that back into your mindset, because everywhere you go, everything you look at tells you to go into the woods. But that's not really where the big bucks are.
So you hunt, you said 7 or 8 different counties. Do you look for terrain like this?
I hunt all different kinds of terrain. I love hunting this terrain early season, when I can get really close to the bedding. When they're on an acorn feeding pattern, they get really killable.
I like that challenging
then when it gets to be like rut, I love hill country because you can read that like a map, you know, right where those bucks are going to be based on the wind, by looking at where are the leeward sides, where the points coming off those leeward sides, you know, what's overlooked, and you can just narrow down that property really easy with a topo map. And then late season, I like farm country because they're so dependent on food and they bed so close to food. The trouble with the farm country in late season is that if they're bedding on the edge of timber watching that food, and you go waltzing under, there's a rub, you sit right here. Also, where are all the deer? Well, they're watching you. So farm country, I usually sit back a little bit and watch it and see where the deer come from, and then I make a move to kill them. If that makes sense. But that's how I like to do it, if I have my way. But in reality, I usually end up there's some buck in the marsh I want to hunt, or some buck over here I want to hunt, and I just hunt wherever I want to hunt.
Yeah.
But in a perfect world, that's the way you do it. Marsh, hill, and then farm country.
So in 2 weeks you're doing hill country, you said?
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try and do a hill country
Where are
one.
you gonna do that?
Probably around Madison. I gotta look at the property first and make sure it lays out all right. I don't want it to be boring. I've hunted there before. There's a TV show host that owns the property that it's not a really great property. Don't take it like that.
Yeah.
But he's got a little minor TV show, and I've hunted there with him a few times. He's a buddy of mine, and I liked it, but I haven't hunted there in years. And I called him up and said, "Hey, you want to do this?" He says, "Okay, but we got cattle up on the tops all over the place. Come and look at it first." So I just want to make sure that it hasn't cattle sized, that there's no deer there, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
Before I go there. I'm really excited about doing a big woods one because I want to go rip apart this area where I was hunting bear bait buck. I don't know if everybody knows that story, but I had a buck come into a bear bait in the Northwoods, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it no longer was a bear bait because that buck became over 200 inches and had over 18 points. And I've got thousands and thousands of pictures of that thing coming in and eating donuts out of my bear bait. You'd have a bear hitting that bait, and he'd be in the background of the picture watching the bear, waiting for him to open it. It was crazy. You know, I wish I would have put more into that deer. I almost killed him.
So, how often do you go after a buck you never laid eyes on? You're seeing big prints and you're seeing rubs that are high up.
I do all the time. I love doing that. It's a little harder, but there's a part of me that is not really about killing a deer. It's the fun of the chase, and I love figuring them out more. So I've got areas that I have figured out so well that if there's a deer bed in there, I'm going to kill it. And for me, I mean, for most people, I think they just keep going there and killing the deer. I just love the idea of going out, figuring them out, and doing it right, and figuring it out and killing them right. And when you go to the same spots, just doing the same thing over and over again. And that's just me. I'm not saying other people should be like that. It's just something that's installed in me. I like the adventure of going out and being in new areas and figuring them out and mapping them out. There's something in me that makes me want to do that. I get bored of the same stuff over and over again. Anything else?
Edge, now that carries over to farm country, right?
Oh yeah. Edge is huge. In farm country, I think a lot of people think the deer are in the middle of those woodlots.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually on the downwind edge, or they're in an opening in the middle of it.
Okay.
They love openings, and the openings will swirl the wind in there and stuff, especially at thicker openings, like where it's grassy or a little bowl of marshy,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Fence lines where nobody walks.
Yeah.
All right, let's go out of here, and if we follow that trail back, we might be able to find that setup I had from earlier this year. And then we'll look at the bedding over here further and a point over there on the way back out.